Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. Welcome to this evening's, this morning's, this afternoon's, or this night's 66 Think Tank, where we're going to be doing the topic of kings and things. Before we get too far into my spiel, where I forget what I'm actually meant to be talking about, I'd like you to recommend you like and or subscribe to our channel and get stuck in and get involved in the discussion. Wherever you've seen this video posted, if you've got anything you want to talk or comment on what we've talked about this evening, this afternoon, this morning in this video, please make sure you get stuck in and post and comment on where you've seen it. So this evening's topic is going to be on kings and things, and I'm going to hand over to the person who's doing the check-ins, which is Mark, who is sat here.
Great, thanks very much. So I'll go around everyone, see how we've all been. So James, how has your week been since the last time we did this?
The last time we did this live was way back in January, I think, was when I was commentating in. And maybe sometime in January when I actually portaled in and kept Jenny and Wade were doing it. How have I been? Well, I've got a new job, which is good. Job is boring, which is bad. But I'm being paid essentially to have nothing to do. So I'm just going to get stuck in and write, because I have a fabulous internet connection, and I'm going to get stuck in there. Other than that, yeah, generally it's okay. It is hot in Hong Kong.
It is indeed hot in Hong Kong. It is air conditioned, so it's scuttled from cafe to cafe. Josh, how about you? How's your week been?
Well, it's been pissing it down, not to put too much French onto anything, but yeah, otherwise it's been very, very tiring. Because of this 4-day weekend, which we're really, really enjoying so far, everybody's wanting, oh, we want our orders out now. So the last few days have been busy as all heck. Same with next week, in fact, because once we come back, no deliveries have gone out in the last 4 days. So Tuesday, everybody's going to want their orders again. Otherwise, working on a new project for 66. I need to do a lot of research into it. Yeah, other than that, can't complain too much, really.
Cool, well, that's good to hear. I'd like to chat more about that new project, and we can sort of tell everyone what we're doing later on. Chris, moving on to you.
Yes, I've had a week where I've been swearing at computers a lot because our server had some various problems and domain names got fucked up, and basically I spent all week trying to untangle it rather than doing something productive. On the plus side, I did get it sorted out Thursday evening, so that meant yesterday I could actually sit down and do some serious work on the Hellenic editing. So I've actually done a lot of editing and got it into the wiki. So we're making progress on that front.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'll just finish with myself before we move on to Kings and Things. I'm on holiday, finally, for the first time in years. So I've come here and started doing work on 66, apparently, for the next hour. Yeah, all okay. Got stuff ready to go, ready. Nothing there, left nothing hanging at work before I came out, so it's all pretty good, and currently enjoying Hong Kong. So that's us, that's how we are, that's how we've been. I'm going to pass back on to Chris now to take us through the Kings and Things, the meat of this session.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, yes, Kings and Things. Very simple challenge this week. It was to create an interesting NPC ruler of a country or an area of an empire. It didn't matter, really. They could be god, kings, queens, presidents, tribal chiefs. Basically, someone who's in charge of an area, but they need to be distinctive. So these are going to be something, when the players encounter them, they're going to remember this king or queen or whatever, and that we also needed a plot hook related to the ruler, so obviously some reason why the players are going to get involved. So that's the sort of setting. We're going to start off with Jay, who's got Islen the Stone-Hearted. Jay, tell us some more.
Yes, I will do. We're probably going to have to do... Alright, I'll just start talking. Right, so the nation of Islen is ruled by King Osbusk, who has reigned now for nearly 300 years. The king's longevity is down to the fact he's a rock elemental, carved to look like a human. He came to power through bribery and trickery. He arrived at Islen a century earlier and saved the bankrupt kingdom from ruin with his riches. In exchange, the old king gave him a land and a title, going so far as to make the newcomer an elector. Putting his stone patience to work, Osbusk manoeuvred the other dukes into electing him as the old monarch had no heir. It was only when he showed no signs of aging that questions started to be asked. So the basic idea we've got around this is what happens if you end up with a kingdom that's based on hereditary rule and a monarch that will never die. he's essentially eternal. Now, he could notionally be killed, so he's had to spend a fair bit of time pacifying the dukes. His main advantage in the fact that his nation is because he is a rock elemental, and he's just patient and calm, and he doesn't have the earthly problems or desires that a more human monarch, a more mortal monarch would have. The general population actually quite like him. Because he's all about stability and getting the job done. And because he doesn't need to sleep, he has a rotating shift of courtiers on 8-hour rotations, because he doesn't need to sleep. So he can govern 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He doesn't need to take a break. So this has caused a bit of problems, because his country is so well run that it's starting to impinge on his neighbours. Because he doesn't do silly things like wars or have infighting. They've had 300 years of peace, which is unknown in this kind of world. So the bit of the plot hook, I think, would be on this case, would be a more slightly less heroic plot hook, in that I can imagine the players being hired by one of the dukes or the great-grandson of one of the original dukes, who's basically had enough of having an unending king. Or one of the neighbouring nations has had enough of this very rich, prosperous, stable kingdom on their border that's got a lot of money for mercenaries. So almost it's like there's a bit of a Switzerland vibe going on with this country. So yeah, I mean, the initial plot hook I'm just coming up with is like essentially people around these guys are fed up with these people's prosperity.
Effectively, the plot hook has to be almost evil. You know, it's got to be an evil party, or at least a party tricked into doing something. Because but on the surface of it, this looks perfect. You've got a good king who governs well, a happy, rich kingdom at peace, and then the players are coming in to really spoil it, aren't they?
Pretty much.
I think you could maybe generate some plot hooks from having social problems, because if they're the only really functioning place, or best functioning place, they're going to have huge numbers of people trying to move in. And so you could be involved in something along those lines. That gives you conflict within the kingdom, these different groups moving in and maybe then bringing their fights with them. But if you want to go something a bit less, something that sounds less allegorical, you could be a party recruited by said king himself to essentially go make some trouble somewhere for people to focus on. Or he's worked out he's made it somehow too peaceful. So he needs trouble somewhere to give the kingdom something to do. So you either have to orchestrate something somewhere or go deal with something somewhere in order to give the kingdom some energy.
Josh,
you've got a thought here.
The horrible concept of if this was D&D, so he cast stone to flesh on him. If he's been around for 300 years, does he just suddenly start aging rapidly? That's a horrible way to assassinate him.
He's been king for 300 years. They didn't say to how long he'd been carved like a human statue for. He could be millennia old.
Yeah, I mean, actually, just touching a couple of things there, because let's say it is your sort of like typical D&D kingdom, then surely he's going to outlaw stone to flesh, and that actually, while he's a good king on many fronts, things which are a direct threat to him, like people who can cast stone to flesh, he's absolutely horrendous towards, and would as soon as a wizard walks into town, and what level are you? Right into the dungeons with you. But I like the idea, Mark. You were saying that causing trouble elsewhere, or that the influx of people coming into the kingdom being a problem. Actually, that I quite like that, because you could have a situation where lots of people are trying to flood into the kingdom, so the king is trying to keep them out, and that's going to make the king look really evil. He's turfing out all these refugees or whatever out of his kingdom, and maybe the players are actually misguided. They think they're going in to help these refugees, where actually the king's just doing really what he should do and protecting his kingdom. So you can set up a misunderstanding between two good parties, effectively.
Or, as an alternative, his response is, rather than to keep these people out, is to go, I've got a lot of new people coming into my kingdom. I'll need some more land. And he starts putting those mercenaries to work on some of the neighbouring dukedoms. It's like, well, your country is hideously run. And you can almost imagine it's like, rather than the refugees arrive at the border and they get given a leaflet on, and here is how you should rebel and cede your territory to this kingdom. You don't need to leave your homes. We'll just make you part of our kingdom and then give you the food.
If you build around some of that kind of thing, he's actually a very, very creepy good guy who just genuinely knows better. but wants to help everyone, bring them into the fold of what's good and right, my better leadership. It's going to kind of role in creeps across the continent. I think another possible plot hook is you get sent by a duke to go find out who created him in the first place. If he's a living statue, someone must have carved him. You go find out who, which is going to lead you on to, right, he's not the only one. For example, there's several others. One that gets recarved every now and again to look like he's getting older and older. Eventually carved into a baby. Yeah.
Josh, you've got some thoughts on stonemasons?
It's pretty much related to what Mark's just said. Plot hook possibly is like suddenly the king is acting very, very, very suspiciously. He's completely out of character for what he used to be. So a stonemason has literally created a replica of the king out of another earth elemental, and they've killed the king and replaced him with exactly the same looking person, but suddenly he's a bit more aggressive. Like, hang on, who are you? What happened to you? So it's up to the party to find out what happened and if it's indeed possible to bring back the old king.
Yeah, I mean, it could get confusing, especially if someone's built a statue of the old king. You know, and then there's sort of like it's Maltese Falcon sort of shuffle of stone kings.
Or it just gets even more surreal with the fact that he's finished work for the day. It's like, well, the court said, we've got no more decisions to make. Okay, right, I'll be out front of the palace. What? Well, it's his own statue.
Or someone steals him as the statue, animates the statue, but say the Maltese Falcon thing, one of the things you find out is that it's actually him.
Just going back to something you said right at the beginning, Jay, that he's a 24-hour king, and that you have 8-hour shifts of being a courtier and things. And I thought, well, if you're a most junior courtier, you'd be on the night shift. You're the court jester for the midnight to 8 a.m. slot, which is only going to be the shittest role in any kingdom. And it just struck me to be a great way to have this like a really minor NPC with a grudge who just wants promotion, just wants to get out of working the night shift.
Yep, cool, that works quite well.
Okay, thank you very much, Jay. So, right, next on is, well, she's not here, Kristen. We've sent her ideas in, so I'm going to read those out. Right, this is the Gossamer Conclave. And in the the Grand Colony, the monarch of the Grand Colony is Queen Maria Elizabeth. And she has learned of this thing called the Gossamer Conclave. And it's a powerful band of off-worlders secretly operating from her kingdom. Now, these off-worlders seem to be behaving themselves, just sort of like blending in with locals and not causing any trouble. So the Queen doesn't want to take any action against them, but she's set up a ministry to watch over them. Because if she draws attention to these off-worlders, in the middle of a kingdom, that all sorts of shit's going to happen. Now, the Gossamer Conclave is actually a government in exile. It's been forced out of their own world, and it's headed up by the Queen Ashley, and her Prince Consort Leopold. Now, they are both powerful sorcerers, but they kept that fact reasonably well hidden, and they do have a child, their heir apparent, Ari, who's only just been born. Now, the two queens have almost this unspoken alliance, which basically says neither gets involved in the other's business. They sort of both know that they could make each other's lives hell, but it's just better just like almost ignore each other and pretend the other person isn't there and just not get involved. However, Prince Ari has been kidnapped, and his mother, Queen Ashley, is inevitably on the warpath. She is going to tear the Grand Colony apart looking for her prince. And obviously, the Queen Maria Elizabeth, doesn't want that, but can appreciate Prince Ari being missing is going to be, a major concern. So she's shouting at her ministry people to get this all sorted out. And that's where the players come in. Their characters are in the ministry for watching over the Gossamer Conclave. So what they are is they're actually caught in the middle. On one hand, they've got their sort of technical boss, Queen Elizabeth, Maria Elizabeth, who's sort of like shouting at them to sort of keep things under control. And then you've got Queen Ashley, who's shouting at them and threatening to unleash all sorts of magical powers if they don't find the prince. So basically, the players are stuck in the middle between these two warring queens. So, Jay, your thoughts?
This is an interesting one because in our world, when you have a government in exile, they essentially, because they have no resources, they are not necessarily very ever much of a threat to the host nation. That's it's like, well, okay, you're a government in exile in this country. We're giving you some parliament buildings. You can go and do your work and try and recover those. Whereas this government in exile, because the monarchs are powerful sorcerers, and it's a group of off-worlders with powerful magics, you end up with a situation where there's almost two governments in the same country. These two very strong competing centers of power. So the situation is very much on a knife edge. It could go very wrong very quickly.
Yes, and that's right. And there's sort of like both parties know it, and sort of like both parties don't want it to go wrong, but also both parties are it's almost irresistible that events can sort of spiral out of controls, and things go very badly wrong. Josh, what are you thinking about this?
I think the player characters are going to have to keep very, very, very quiet about this. This seems like a campaign where secrecy is absolutely nominal. Particularly in our Tuesday campaign, the Neo-Gothic horror, we're undercover currently, and we have a system to show how much our identities have been exposed. It's like a score. So if the players start off with a score of, say, like, oh, you're known to everybody, you've been brought in specifically for that point, you start off with a score of 5, and then during the course of the adventure, depending on their actions, it goes up. Means their undercoverness is improving, or goes down to show that they're close to being discovered. Unfortunately, in our Tuesday campaign, it has now gone down to 0 to one of our characters having a big mouth. But anyway, point is, the characters have to keep absolutely secret. They have to be careful who they trust, who they talk to. Because if they expose the fact there is indeed another government in exile, what if there's sleeper agents that exist? What if there's other factions involved? What if the people going, well, they're all weak now, they're fighting, let's invade now,
Yes, yeah, that's right. They have to keep it secret for so many reasons, just purely for, if the public knew that there was off-worlders here, it caused all sorts of panic. Mark, I think you had some thoughts along similar lines.
Yeah, it was kind of on the same sort of idea of co-operations and also power centers. I mean, is the existence of off-worlders actually a secret in and of itself? Or is it just that there's a band of them that are powerful that she's keeping?
It's not made clear. I think it could go either way, depending how you want to set it up.
Yeah, because as a writer, you could make Queen Ashley more of a threat, make her more powerful, and there's actually quite a large population of her people in the kingdom as well. So there's quite a sort of large diaspora of them around that she can draw on. And that's one of the reasons why she's gone there rather than anywhere else, that she has a popular base. And that's how you can go as like two governments, because whilst her people are still notionally under the jurisdiction of Queen Maria, they're really actually loyal to Queen Ashley, so you can give her more title power that way. And another question we just thought of whilst just now was also who is Queen Ashley running from? This conflict must have been ousted by someone, so presumably that government that replaced them is going to have agents to go after this, and they're going to be the obvious first port of call for who the enemy might be. Is that they're the ones their agents who snatched the child, or it could be another group of nobles who've been exiled to another world. They don't have legitimacy. I tell you what, if we nick the kid, claim that the other two are dead, right? We've now got the heir, therefore we're legitimate. So you've got quite a few options for the political game.
Yeah, I mean, the particular thing is the fact that it's stated they're a government in exile. They're not necessarily refugees from the disaster.
It sounds like exile of a revolution or a coup.
Yeah, that's right. But there's as much political stuff you want to put in. You can have two rival governments in exile. That's happened before. And then the question is, well, why are they exiled? Who exiled them, and what agenda do those people have? Because all sorts of stuff could come out. So it actually would be quite you could sort of use this quite an introductory adventure. The players just think they're being sort of like this covert team watching a sort of a simple band of aliens or off-worlders. And in the course of this kidnapping, they actually uncover that there's this huge complex web of politics and interrelated worlds and governments and things like that out there, and they're just stuck at the heart of it. So it'd be a good way of sort of introducing and explaining a world setup. Okay, I think that's enough on that one. Let's move on to it is Mark, and you've got a robber baron, I believe.
Yeah, so this is the idea of someone who kind of got made king when he didn't really intend to be. So he's originally a mafia leader, so mafioso, who managed to get enough clout and power together in his region to marry into the royal family. He married at a lower level. He never intended to be king. He never expected to be king, ever. But he just wanted a bit more clout. Problem was, everything went wrong when the high level of royalty went abroad to attend a wedding. Whilst they were there, a popular revolt happened amongst their peasantry, stormed the ceremony, so most of them were either dead or in prison by the revolutionary government abroad. That actually left him in line through marriage. So he never really wanted to be king, but the problem is the other nobility, the surviving nobility, have blamed him for orchestrating the death of the monarchy, thinking that he's responsible for it, even though he didn't. So, and he's also being pushed by his own lieutenants from underneath, saying, "No, boss, take the role, take king, we can have more power." So he doesn't want to be, but he's got two forces driving him, he has to do it. Either he gets killed by his own lieutenants for not taking the role, or he gets killed by the nobility because he hasn't got the strength to defend himself. So he became king, reluctantly. Thing is, his role's actually been really quite good. When he became king, he fell back in his old sort of mafia premises of treat your subordinates well and reward good service, punish betrayal, and then when you're dealing with rivals, make deals and compromises and rule on spheres of interest. This actually made him really effective, because that's the absolute core of politics and leadership. Since he's been doing it without any foibles, because he thinks he's kind of dancing on hot coals, he's actually done this really well. Over the years, though, his mafia and the state have actually kind of become indistinguishable. And the legal system, police and tax collectors have actually been replaced by a system of protection money, because he just fell back on what he knew. And there's actually considerable freedom in the kingdom, so long as you don't tread on anybody else's protection. But then everything can be bought as bought with this kind of protection money. So you can protect against criminal damage in the traditional way, but you can also protect yourself from IP theft, or slander, or libel, or fire, or anything you like. So it kind of becomes like a lawyer state, where you simply buy the services you need. If you set your business, well, I'm afraid of being slandered against, or my idea is stolen, I'll just buy protection money for that, and then the state will deal with it for me when that happens, because that's the law I've bought. But in order to make sure that, to keep it affordable, or to make sure that everyone had it, and he didn't end up with popular revolt against this rule, he made sure that the rates were really cheap. So almost anyone, as long as you've got a few pennies together, you can buy some level of protection for yourself, which generates some plot hooks. Because you can be, for example, the enforcers of that, or you can be someone who you're trying to make your way or do something in the kingdom. And there's a kind of a major landmark that's been built in the capital city to deal with this, which is the Library of Protection. So it houses copies of all of the contracts that exist. So it's open for anyone. So if you're going to set up a business or do something, or even you want to build an extension to your house, your neighbour may have bought protection against you darkening his rooms by building an extension. So it's even replaced by planning law, for example. So you can go there, search for stuff, and find out, right, has anyone already bought protection against this thing I want to do? No, marvellous, I'm going to go do it. If anybody has, then you can't do that thing. You have to find a way around that. But the king's officials also use that to make sure they never sell conflicting contracts. So there's a source of great intrigue centred around the library of dealing with and finding out what's going on, what people can do, and trying to almost perhaps even get into buying and selling contracts. But that's the kind of it. It's sort of a mafia state, which came about kind of by accident. He's done it for the best reason, just kind of to stay alive.
Yeah,
so he's had to do it by pacifying ability and pacifying the people.
I like it. It's sort of, it's a dystopian, utopian sort of situation, because on one level it's sort of like very efficient government, and that even the poor can get protection and things like that. But on the other hand, it's like, oh, if you've got the money, you can do pretty much anything you like. So it's sort of, it's quite a curious one, that. I mean, my initial thought was, I like this idea that you can search for people who don't have protection or whatever else. And I think, well, if you're a serial killer, then you're going to spend your time in that library looking up victims you can safely go out and kill because they don't have any protection.
Yeah, I suppose you could that's one of the things you make is protection. Protection from being killed is quite a very basic level. Almost anyone can buy that to some degree.
Yeah, but there's always going to be people who will say for themselves, "Oh, it's never going to happen to me. I'm not going to spend that $5." You know, so yeah,
I'm not going to do that.
Josh, you have some thoughts?
Total chaos. What if somebody burnt down the Library of Protection? And suddenly all the contracts that suddenly exist are now null and void. Power plays everywhere. Suddenly houses can be built sky high because somebody doesn't give a damn about how much light gets in the neighbour's house. Now it's up to the players to go, oh crap, what do we do now? So do they make the most of it and try and make a name for themselves? Do they try and restore order by maybe finding some kind of mythical, even backup library? So imagine backups exist somewhere in case of this very thing happening.
So the idea was copies of contracts. So when you take out a contract on your business, you have a copy, and then the library has a copy. So you have that. Then they say you still have this period of chaos because whilst the library is still being rebuilt and all those contracts are being called back in so that copies can be made, then you get the chance you can waylay people. Because if it's not in the library, the original, and there's only one copy now of every contract in existence, if you can get to it, you can do whatever the hell you like.
Yes, it's sort of like destroying the will, so that you can sort of claim that it was all going to be left to you. So yeah, I love the idea that you make it about a bureaucracy and that you're destroying the paperwork and chasing around copies and things like that. Oh no, I think there was a draft copy in the waste bin. Quick, go get it!
Get that. Edit that. There we go.
Yeah. One of the things my immediate thing is this sort of like kingdom. It's sort of quite complex, and I think I wouldn't necessarily want to set a campaign there, but it's a sort of nice kingdom for the players to come into, where they sort of like have a job there. We don't think there's anything unusual about this kingdom, but they get to the borders and they say, "Oh yes, you can come in. Oh, would you like to take a contract out on protection from being assassinated, a contract from being robbed?" It'd be like one of those car hire places where, do you want the collision damage waiver? Do you want the charge?
One of the things I quite liked about it was he got kind of a very complex legal system, in that it almost doesn't exist, but it's actually highly complex as well, which the players can have to maneuver within, and then you do stuff, you base stuff on that. So I'm running a Pathfinder campaign, a place where there's only 6 of the very specific laws, and so the players can have to sort of, it affects how you play and what you do is kind of dealing with that, and I wanted that similar kind of thing here.
Yes, yeah, I think there's an avenue in any adventure for screwing up the players with red tape and law. So yeah, anything which sort of sets that up is a good thing. Okay, I think that's the robber baron. I especially like the backstory of the sort of mafiosa, the accidental king. Yeah, sort of like I quite like. I think even on its own, that's a great plot hook. So let's move on to Josh, and you've got a Sting Queen.
Not a Sting Queen, the Sting Queen. You'll show her some respect, as you would say. So deep in the jungles of, I wrote it, I can't even pronounce it anymore. Kalatok stands a gigantic hive of resin and stone. Inside this monolithic structure lies an insect queen of equally gigantic proportions. A wise, benevolent ruler, she guides her insect people in a nature-caring existence. The jungles are her domain. Nothing happens without her being aware, for even the most basic insect or arachnid is linked via a psionic network. Despite her aloof and fun-loving demeanour, she is a vengeful soul. Foes are soon dispatched and used to fertilise the very jungle where they fall. Occasionally, this can lead her into friction with other kingdoms, as she easily considers the life of someone despoiling her domain as one so simply snuffed out. Plot hook. The players discover the corpse of one of her aggressors, a diplomat from another rival kingdom. Upon the corpse is a proclamation to the Sting Queen. If she does not surrender her kingdom, then they will be struck down and burned to ashes. Now it's up to the players to garner a meeting with her and convince her that she is indeed in trouble, for the kingdom of Score has many war constructs, enough to destroy everything in their path. Basically the idea is that this Sting Queen's hubris has now led her to believe, oh, we just let the people fall where they die. We're not going to check the corpses, not at all. So suddenly she's dropped this rival, and this rival's like, right, I'm a messenger, you either surrender or die. And now she has no idea what's coming.
Yeah, I like this. I was thinking that is she ruling this area in the sort of same way like a human ruler? Or is it one of these things where the humans think they own this land, but the queen thinks, well, I'm here, she doesn't have any real concept of, human ownership of land and things like that, and so this is my terrain, this is where I fly, therefore it's mine to do what I like with. And there's that sort of clash of culture thing going on.
Basically, yeah, but the point is, anybody can go there, and anybody can effectively live there, but they have to abide by the rules that she sets out. So you can't actively destroy the forest without me knowing. You can't just clear out a patch of land. You have to ask me to do it. Then I won't consider you an enemy. Because if you just go and start tearing down trees willy-nilly, so, oh no, you're hurting the forest, jungle. Sorry, I'm gonna have to go and get you now. But why? She's quite she's quite compromising. Who can live there? She has no real actual rivalries with anybody.
So she's not a warmongering kingdom, she just sort of wants to nurture her space, and that's all she's interested in.
Yeah.
Mark, you have some thoughts?
I was going to think about making it maybe a bit more aggressive than that. So she does that. She wants to nurture her space, and she also just wants to create more jungle. It's like the idea of wherever I fly is my kingdom. So one of the things she has her workers do is carrying seeds out and planting more jungle, and the place slowly spreads over time, which is going to start encroaching on people's farmland or their towns or things like that, because she has no concept of, oh, that's land that people own. Oh, I can plant a tree on that. Let's send someone to do that. So that's kind of a source of conflict for her, the fact that she's just spreading the jungle. Obviously, it takes a very long time.
As
they just do.
I suppose it is true. I mean, she isn't exactly human, so she wouldn't be held to the same moral standards we would be. So it's entirely possible.
Yeah, I think at the heart of this, there's the whole basically that alien culture thing. That thing, the clash of cultures, where you just don't understand what the other person wants or is trying to do. So yeah, again, and do you imagine the players being part of her kingdom? Some outside ambassadors sent into it, or some complete strangers?
There are people who have, on a separate quest maybe, during the main quest, they've come into this territory seeking a lead they've found, and they stumble across this, and it's, well, we don't want this to happen because this is just going to create more trouble for everybody. Especially if she decides to go, right, okay, I've had enough of everybody, let's start taking over the world. I mean, there's a lot more insects than there are people. So it's more of a sub-quest for the greater good.
Yeah, you could possibly sort of like put it somewhere strategic. So this is in like a huge valley, which is like the one way to get across this mountain range. And her controlling it, it wasn't too bad, because they could come and go as they wished, as long as it didn't mess with the forest. Everybody was happy, and now you've got the potential of a situation where someone's going to invade this valley, or it's going to get disrupted, so everyone will suffer. And of course, because it's a transit zone, you've got a reason for players to be passing through at the critical point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Jay?
Yeah, it's just a classic thing from our own history. Is that it's amazing the lengths the governments will go to if they think their trade's being affected. I can easily imagine that some far off a trading company turning up and going, well, actually, if we put a stone road through this jungle village, linking these two nations, we'll be able to charge a toll and make an absolute fortune. Or neighbouring governments getting together and say, well, actually, this jungle that's between us is hampering our designs in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, I mean, the idea of her having an area of territory that people have designs of is certainly interesting. But also the jungle culture not understanding at all the concept of ownership or trade, because it's a banned society. She's just the psionic head of a society of insects. It's just like, what do? Well, we eat and we feed. Then we mate. Whereas the whole concept of you want to put rocks on the ground? Why do you want to put rocks on the ground? You just vomit up your home. It's just, yeah, the conflict of culture, I think, is quite good. But you could certainly imagine that the location this jungle is in I can imagine. I almost imagine like several nations, an island or an island continent with nations around the edge, and the jungle's in the middle of it. And
yes,
because of the control of the center of it, it really affects the value of trade or the movement
Everybody
of
has to go
armies,
around.
because everyone
Yeah.
goes around it. Because they previously, when they've ever gone anywhere near it, you just get obliterated if you start harming the jungle.
yeah, you could actually come up with quite a deliberately contrived setup of kingdoms to give you a really interesting things, because people on like the opposite side of the wheel won't have much trade routes, and so they won't have much to do with each other, and actually so suddenly introducing a road between them will fundamentally change the politics of the island. So yeah, there's so much you can do with that basic setup, and having this completely alien culture at its heart, it just allows you a lot of role-playing opportunities. Okay, let's move on. Finally, I think we've got time for one more. Yeah, we'll do mine. Since it's next on the list. Right, the King of the Ancestors is what this is called. So, the city of Keenmouth appears as a prosperous city, no different from many others found across the continent, but beneath the streets there is something truly unique, for the people of Keenmouth take ancestor worship seriously. Tradition decrees that the dead are placed in a cave, along with their possessions, and that the living visit the dead, according to a strict schedule based on how long ago that person died. Now, the supply of natural caves was used up a millennium ago, so the folk of Keenmouth did the only thing they possibly could and started excavating beneath their city. After 1,000 years, a massive warren of caves and passages exists, and is often crowded as the living visit their ancestors. However, early on in this cave network's existence, they had some terror events with some undead and subterranean creatures. So the town council said they had to do something, and they decreed there should be a guardian to keep these caves safe, to allow the living to visit the ancestors. This is an important job, vital for everyone's immortal souls, so they had to give it to someone they trusted. So they came up with a novel solution. They had a magic item created which returned a recently dead personality to their own corpse and animated it. And they gave this magic item to the head of the recently deceased town guard. So this is a person who's like trusted by everybody, who's got the right experience, and just happens to be dead. So they gave them the job. The reanimated guard captain took up their duties underneath the streets and works tirelessly protecting the living. When the current living guard captain dies, the animated captain hands over the magic item, so they can go and join the ancestors, and the newly dead person gets to take on the role for a period of time. So it's sort of like inheriting, effectively, the job. It's passed on to you when you die, bizarrely. Now, for millennium, this process has continued undisturbed, the item and responsibility handed down the line of dead guard captains to dead guard captain, and it's acquired the nickname as the King of the Ancestors, and it's a hugely important and respected role. However, the current living guard captain is a half-elf and can be expected to live for several hundred more years. The current dead King of the Ancestor has already been king for 20 years, and quite frankly he's bored. He wants to go and join his ancestors. So the King of the Ancestors is looking for an unscrupulous party of adventurers to kill the current guard captain so he can pass on his role to the newly deceased. So, what do people think of that? Jay?
Consequently, this is a very complex assassination, because the man you kill immediately is then in a position to really screw you over, because he doesn't stay dead for very long. So you really have to get out of town quite sharpish.
Or do it very discreetly.
Yeah. You've got to make it look natural.
Yes, yeah, but the trouble is the person who's dead will know it's not natural. Unless, or we're going to suspect. Yeah, the whole setup is like this is inverse inheritance. When you die, you inherit the job. And then the natural consequences of that, I think similar to as we were talking about with your Stone King, is that what happens if somebody doesn't die in this sort of system, and it presents some of the same problems. Except I decided to go for an evil solution and have someone assassinated.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, you don't know how much authority the King of the Ancestors has, because it's implied what you've written is just it's one man who goes around with a very heavy mace, dealing with any undead that pop up out of the catacombs, and essentially is the guard of the catacombs. So while they're necessarily well respected, they're not necessarily that powerful. They are, however, an exceptionally powerful Lich Knight. Lich Knight. So if they do decide to leave their duties for a few hours and go and find the adventurers who slotted them.
Yeah, you could put some interesting quirks, but the magic item, whatever magic's used to reanimate these things, what powers does it give the dead guard captain? Are they allowed to leave the catacombs? There's all sorts of things you could factor into the magic to give the plot different twists and directions.
Yeah, I mean, a couple other consequences that immediately popped to mind. One, if the plot is discovered, what happens to the current King of the Ancestors? You can't kill him. He's already dead. You can't replace him. His successor is still alive. So that will be a hideous political mess to try and sort out. How do you punish someone who is already dead? What was the other thing I had? Oh, I missed the other. I dropped the other consequence from my mind.
But I don't know. That one is just a wonderful thought. It hadn't occurred to me. Yeah, actually, the plot getting discovered is almost more interesting than the plot being carried out, isn't it? Because the mess it would make. Who do you do? Well, you could destroy the current King of the Ancestors, but then you don't have a King of the Ancestors, and he's dead. How do you punish him? He wants to be dead at the end of the day.
Yeah, but the other idea was if the King of the Ancestors, you kill the half elf, he becomes King of the Ancestors. He then goes on a vendetta because he wasn't remotely ready to slip off this mortal coil. But the players succeed in fending him off, and then undo the magic item or obliviate him. They're suddenly going to have an entire culture who is very upset that their knight paragon has been undone by this party of adventurers. Twice.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's almost one thing you could almost end up destroying the entire kingdom because it's such a fundamental part of the culture that they bury the dead and things like that, and they could just see this whole thing tumbling down when the role of King of the Ancestors falls into disrepute one way or the other. Yeah. So I just love the idea of setting up a good party to do something they think is good, which results in the destruction of his entire society. Okay, I think it's about time. Mark, I've got a couple of minutes. Mark, very quickly, would you like to run us through Emily's The Divines?
Yeah, sure. Just rattle through that one. So it's not one ruler actually in this particular place. It's a city-state called Cathra. Got 7 rulers, and they're all actually demigods, hence the Divines. And they're a patron to their section of the Isle, and then they work as a council working together in peace. And each sister, each of those individual kind of demigod princesses, stands for a divine virtue. So chastity, temperance, charity, diligence, patience, kindness, and humility. I didn't know the full list. And all was well, but then some kind of dark kinds have come, and just the sister of humility is missing. And without her to keep balance, the sister's virtues are becoming warped and reversed into sin. So there's an idea here where the 7 virtues, all embodied by these kind of 7 sisters, these demigods, are all kind of self-supporting. If you lose humility, then perhaps your kindness can turn into arrogance, or your patience turned into like a sort of snake-like waiting, predatory behaviour, that kind of thing. So she's gone, and so the others are starting to walk. But then, I suppose your plot hook then is you immediately have to go find her.
Yes, it's a classic fantasy situation where you have this wonderfully well-governed kingdom, which, because of events, is falling into evil, and then it's up to the players to sort of rescue and prevent that evil taking place. Jay?
Well, I just think it's Mark was saying, take it a more direct thing, because these demigods actually are aspects or avatars of that virtue amongst the population. So since humility's gone missing, everyone in the society is becoming more prideful.
Yeah, more arrogant and things. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it reflects in the population rather than necessarily the government policy.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and because people are being everyone, including the demigods themselves, because they're as similarly affected by the missing of their sister, are becoming more prideful. Then they start drifting off their realm. So yeah, that's when you get the reverse of the sin starts going to happen, because lose any one of them, and the society loses that. So if you lose the kindness, then things get good. If suddenly everyone becomes impatient, it doesn't matter how diligent you are. So you could set up quite an interesting society, and then it's simply a case of picking which one of these virtues you want to tweak and remove, and then seeing how the others reflect around that, and then throwing the players into that. And if you want to make it really interesting, having them suffer the same essential status effect that everyone else is.
Yeah, everyone gets the arrogance card or whatever. Yeah, I like that. Okay, I think we're about done for time. There's some fantastic ideas. So, who am I handing over to? It's Josh. Oh, it's to you, isn't it? Josh.
It is indeed home to me. So, pluses and deltas. I'll go across the board from what I can see. Chris, how do you feel about that?
Yes. Well, I thought the tech worked wonderfully. I was thinking, Hong Kong, 6 o'clock on a Saturday night for Hong Kong time, we would struggle with internet. But no, I think we've done really well with the tech. So not often we get to say that. So hooray for Google and tech. Delta, unfortunately, Emily was ill and had to drop out at the last minute, which is a shame because she's a poorly girl and we like her to be fit and well. So, boo for an ill Emily.
Oh, bless her. Jay, do you have any cheesecake?
Yes.
Prove it.
You did actually.
I did actually have cheesecake in this afternoon. I actually had Oreo and banana cheesecake. So yes, I had
Very
cheesecake.
nice.
So, as a plus, I have cheesecake. As another plus, it's good to be back talking with you guys again. I always enjoy these sessions of bouncing the ideas around. I have been watching them and putting them up on the transcripts up and that, so it's been good doing that. So that's been quite good fun. As a Delta, the usual lack of people will fit, and the fact that my voice is a little bit sore because I have a sore throat.
Oh no. Mark,
Also,
did you
I spotted the panda.
I see the panda. Can we burn it?
No.
No.
Please.
You're evil.
Mark,
That's my Delta. Josh, Chris, my Delta is now Josh wants to burn my panda.
Mark, did you have an amazing cheesecake?
No, I didn't. I had Madeline and some Chinese tea instead. So yeah, plus points. I'm on holiday and I'm in Hong Kong. It's really quite awesome here. Meeting itself, yeah, good bouncing around of ideas. I think we had some good ones. I'm pretty pleased with the crop. And deltas, blah, blah, blah. I would agree with, say, too few people, but there's always a limit on having too many people as well. But we have fallen back to the same four phases. Obviously, it's the time of day and Nurgle. So, yeah, so not many deltas per se, but I'd be worried in the longer term if we struggle to get more people back in.
I think it's just that time of year when work's just being a bit of a problem. As for myself, pluses, great subject. Good to see Jay again. Good to mock him for his cheesecake addiction. Deltas, weather. You lucky sods have got nice sun and warmth. We've got unpredictable at best. Literally 1 minute it's rain, 1 minute it's sun. Screw it. And we could have done with at least one more person. Yeah, it happens. Nothing we can do at the time. And it's certainly interesting to have this meeting on a Saturday morning when I actually got to be relatively awake for it for once. Instead of rushing home from work and going, oh God, what do I need to do? You know? It's quite nice. So I'll pass, I think, back on to Jay for the outro. Don't pause it off, and remember to remind people to subscribe.
I will do. I would like to remind people to subscribe and to like and to comment if they've enjoyed this video.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Share and enjoy.
Share and enjoy. So this week's meeting has been about Kings and Things, where we've basically put together a selection of basic ideas using the word basic excessively in a basic sentence. Yes, I'm talking too much. Kings and Things, we've come up with a selection of unpleasant and pleasant rulers. In fact, we've come up with a lot of unpleasant things we'd like to do to quite pleasant rulers over the course of this think tank. I hope you've enjoyed listening to us talk amongst ourselves about the ideas that we enjoy having. We enjoy talking about the ideas that we indeed enjoy having. Thank you very much for listening, and finally, please remember to like and subscribe and to share and enjoy and to comment and to speak freely about your ideas. This has been the 66 Think Tank. I've been Jay Foster, and these have been my other friends who've been doing it. Thank you very much.